Welcome to Short Bible Messages again. My name is Hoddenbagh. In this video we start with an overview of the New Testament and especially about the Gospel of Matthew. For those who do not yet know this, the New Testament, the second part of the Bible, begins with 4 Gospels. We will explain the word gospel later on. These 4 Gospels are being followed by the Acts of the Apostles, the history of the first Christians and the first missionary journeys. Then we find several letters to churches and persons, and finally there's the book of Revelation, a prophetic book. But as I said, to start with, there are 4 Gospels. But as a matter of fact, there's only one Gospel. The word Gospel means the good news or good tidings. Here it is the good news about the coming of Jesus, according to the prophets. God himself would appear as a human being into this world. The prophet Isaiah said about it, "Behold, the Lord Jehovah will come with a strong hand, and his arm shall rule for him. Behold, his reward is with him, and his work before him." It's Isaiah 40, verse 10. And say to those of a hasty heart, "Be strong, fear not. Behold, your God will come." Then the eyes of the blind shall be opened, and the ears of the deaf shall be unstopped. Then a lame shall leap like a deer, and the tongue of a dumb shall sing. For in the wilderness waters shall break out, and streams in the desert. That's Isaiah 35, verse 5 and 6. And many words of these prophets were fulfilled. Not all. Some are going to be fulfilled in future. But the promised king, Jesus, he came. He was the Messiah, that's Hebrew, of the Jews. He was the Christ, that's the same in Greek, and he came into the world. And by the way, he is not just a king, but he also will be a priest and a prophet, all in one person. But all this will only become apparent in the future. Well, this good news, the arrival of the king, this good news was written down by 4 selected authors. That is why there is the Gospel according to Matthew, according to Mark, according to Luke, and according to John. The first writer was Matthew. He was a tax collector for the Romans, and he had, before he followed our Lord Jesus Christ, like his colleagues in general, no good reputation at all. Now, what was his message? Well, he was given the task of showing the Jews that Jesus Christ was indeed the promised King of the Jews, promised by the prophets of the Old Testament. The kingdom. The word that characterizes this gospel is the kingdom. In this gospel, we read about the kingdom of heaven. That is the dominion of heaven over the earth. The heavenly king did come to earth. Isn't that great? Yes, it's great. But what happened to this great king? Well, that was less great. A key verse of this book says, "And they put up over his head his accusation, written, 'This is Jesus, the King of the Jews.'" It's chapter 27, verse 37. The great king crucified. It seemed as if God's plan had failed. But was that so? No. What stood on the cross above his head was fact. He was and is the King of the Jews. Jewish Christians. Matthew wrote his gospel for Jewish Christians. Of course, they were asking themselves, what happened to the promised kingdom? God promised it to us in the Old Testament. After all, he promised that he would reign here on earth in this world. Jerusalem would become the capital of the world. Well, Matthew showed those believers that this kingdom of heaven had taken on a different form. Read chapter 13 in particular. For the crucified king did not remain in the tomb. He rose from the dead and is alive. He, the king, after his resurrection could say, "All authority has been given to me in heaven and on earth." The scriptures are being fulfilled. Before he was crucified, Jesus could say, "Do you think that I cannot now pray to my Father, and he shall presently give me more than 12 legions of angels? But how then shall the scriptures be fulfilled, that it must be so?" We read it in Matthew 26, verse 53 and 54. You see, this is precisely what is so characteristic of this gospel. How should the scriptures be fulfilled? The prophets had written about the suffering Messiah, and the prophets had written about the Messiah who was to reign. Both would be fulfilled. Both will be fulfilled. Well, Matthew wrote his gospel for Jews. They knew the prophets. The Romans were not interested in the Old Testament and in its prophecies. Mark, the evangelist, wrote his book for them. It is really nice to see how wisely God has written his book, the Bible. The king is coming. Finally this, the king will come back. He will sit on the throne of glory. He will judge. Matthew 25 from verse 31. Are you ready to meet this king, this Lord? Or will he have to tell you someday, "Truly, I said to you, I don't know you"? It's Matthew 25 verse 12. Well, thank you for watching. Time is up. See you next time. Your Hoddenbagh.